Gary Webb and the King, Chapter 1. So when you read the book Dark Alliance, it quickly becomes obvious why Gary Webb had to be destroyed. And he was destroyed. They, the ruling elite and their lackeys, called him a conspiracy theorist. After Dark Alliance, Webb found it difficult to get a job. The mainstream media was all over him. He became depressed. And finally, he took his own life, or at least that's what the official report is. That's what his wife believes, so it seems reasonable to believe such. Some people have alleged that the CIA killed him because a lot of people who interfere with the official story of the United States, as defined by the ruling elite, die of suicide, and because he was shot in the head twice. It's difficult for lay people to understand that a suicide victim can be shot in the head twice, but apparently it does happen. But even if he did take his life, we have to ask ourselves whether his detractors and the CIA and the mainstream media still pulled the trigger by making his life unbearable. So, regardless of whether Gary Webb pulled the trigger or not, the machine is still culpable. But obviously, they felt they had no choice but to destroy him. Listen closely. The illusion that America is a decent land led by beautiful leaders must be maintained at all costs. See, it's one thing for word to get out that our government is committing atrocities in foreign countries way over there. It's quite another for word to get out that our government is doing the same thing here in the United States. Plus, the CIA isn't supposed to be operating in the United States. But when the CIA looks the other way or actively assists drug dealers in importing drugs, they are operating in the United States. And of course, that is something that our leaders in the CIA are most acutely concerned about because public awareness of such will lead to a massive reformation of their organization, which obviously they do not want. No organization likes change, and the CIA is no different. They would prefer to operate in the same way that they're operating now. As I've told you before, the CIA does not work for you. The CIA is the thug army of the ruling elite. They work for the ruling elite, not us. Now, sometimes you indirectly benefit, but if there's a choice to be made between you and the ruling elite, sorry, Charlie, you're going down for the 10 count. And that is why our ruling elite are not fit to rule. They're too stupid to rule. Plus, of course, they're evil, according to our working definition of evil, which is when you put your money and profits above that of the welfare of regular people. So in that regard, they're very much like King Louis XIV, who wasn't smart enough to temper his vanity and greed. They are like all the thug emperors of the past who have gone down for the 10 count because they weren't able to lead properly. The problem is that they're too greedy for their own good, and it will catch up with them. But unfortunately, we will pay the price along the way. In the movie Scarface, Tony Montana's boss, Frank Lopez, played brilliantly by Robert Loggia, tries to explain to Tony how to lead an organization. And what he tells Tony is this: listen to me, Tony. The guys who fly straight last. That was the advice that Frank gave to Tony. Unfortunately, Tony didn't follow that advice. Well, we wouldn't have had a movie if he had. But if he had followed that advice, Tony would have lasted a long time. He would have been more successful in life. But Tony wanted it all. Tony was a pig. Tony was greedy. Our leaders should take note of this. They should be smart enough to take Frank Lopez's advice, but they're not. And so when a guy like Gary Webb comes along who exposes what they're doing, they don't look at that exposition as admonition and an opportunity to rethink. They view Gary Webb as an enemy to be destroyed. And so they go about and they do it. And there are many ways to kill people. You don't have to use a gun. You can make the person want to kill himself. Enter Walter Pincus. In his book, Dark Alliance, Gary Webb talks about his enemies in the media who tried valiantly to destroy him. One particular individual he talks about is Walter Pincus. Walter Pincus was a writer for the Washington Post who came out against Gary Webb. Pincus didn't dispute Webb's facts. He was far more clever than that. He said that Webb came up with the wrong conclusions. When you look at Walter Pincus's resume, it's easy to see why he got to where he got in life. Pincus was and still is a card-carrying member of the American Empire. He's all on board. He graduated from Yale University, and he's won a lot of awards. Now, here's his resume, and it's pretty impressive. This comes from Wikipedia. Walter Haskell Pincus, born December 24th, 1932, is an American national security journalist. He reported for the Washington Post until the end of 2015. He has won several prizes, including a Polk Award in 1977, a television Emmy in 1981, and shared a 2002 Pulitzer Prize for national reporting with 5 other Washington Post reporters, and the 2010 Arthur Ross Media Award from the American Academy for Diplomacy. Since 2003, he has taught at Stanford University's Stanford and Washington program. He is a graduate of Yale and Georgetown University Law Center. I call Georgetown University CIA University and have so for decades. Now, I have heard of other people who've come to the same conclusion. In fact, and I can't believe this was put on the internet through Google AI. Yes, the CIA recruits heavily from Georgetown University, which is often unofficially referred to as CIAU due to the high volume of graduates that entered the agency. Key details regarding this connection include pipeline to agency. Georgetown, particularly the School of Foreign Service, serves as a major source of talent for the CIA. Active presence. CIA recruiters are frequently on campus for information sessions, and the agency is known to have a strong relationship with the university. Geographical proximity. Located in Washington, D.C., Georgetown is a premier target for recruiting individuals with expertise in international relations, foreign languages, and security studies. In QTEL connection. In QTEL, the CIA's venture capital firm also employs many Georgetown graduates. Active duty faculty. The CIA has historically used and may still use a program where intelligence officers are in residence at universities like Georgetown, teaching, and in some cases, identifying potential recruits. While Georgetown is a top source, the CIA also recruits heavily from other elite institutions, including the Ivies and schools with strong international affairs or technical programs. George Washington University, Johns Hopkins, and Stanford. It comes from Google AI. So Pincus is just the type of credentialed person that the empire uses to fool the masses. Yale and Georgetown are where you go when you want to ascend to the higher ranks of the empire. The awards which Pincus won were handed out by the king, not for the benefit of Walter Pincus, but for the benefit of the king. The king understands that these awards loan credibility to the person doing the speaking. So when Walter Pincus speaks, the king speaks. Walter Pincus is nothing more than a vessel for the king. Walter Pincus is alive today. And it doesn't seem fair that Pincus receives all the accolades while Gary Webb was forced to commit suicide. That's the way our world has existed. That's the way it exists today. The current government doesn't need to assassinate you with a gun. It only needs to put pressure on your employer or prospective employer. It only needs to figure out sneaky ways to deny you a livelihood. And that's the way it is.